Assalamu alaikum. My name is Asma Bajawa. I'm the founder and managing director of PeopleFirst HR consultancy. I was born and bred in the UK. I'm origins are Pakistani and I've been living in the UAE now for 20 years. Actually, yes, I joined British Airways when I was very young. I was there for 22 years. I didn't go to university actually when I was younger. I got married very young. I got married when I was 19. I had my son when I was 20. And when I actually had my son, I was working for a bank for a couple of years, but I hadn't been there long enough to get maternity leave. So I had to leave the bank, had my son, and at that time, unfortunately, my husband had lost his job. Things weren't very good. So I had to go back to work very, very early. So my son was only about 2.5 months old. I applied for British Airways, my first interview, they snapped me up. So I went to work with them, actually in sales and reservations first. So I was in a call center, taking calls, making bookings, etc., and learnt all about their products and how to sell and those kinds of things. From there, I then, a few years later, had my daughter, and then I wanted to work part-time. And the only place in those days that offered part-time working was at the airport. So I applied to be a check-in agent and was successful in that, went to be a check-in agent and established my career within customer services. So frontline, in a uniform, on a check-in desk. And over the years, I thought I was going to be the customer service manager of British Airways at the airports. But as I progressed, I became a duty manager and then took on the training portfolio for the area that I was working with. So I was working with, from check-in, I moved to flight connections, which is the transfer desk, and then became responsible for training and development in that particular area. From there, I moved on to look after training and development for Heathrow, which was around 6,000 people. I was asked to then look after all of their open learning centres. So I took that responsibility on. And so really my route into HR was through the training and development sort of process. At one point, I then moved from Heathrow to corporate training and became responsible for looking after 12 UK airports in the training portfolio, and then was lucky enough to start developing behavioural change programmes for their global network. Actually, it was probably one of the best moves I've made. I'm very, very pleased. I feel like this is very much my home now. When I land back in the UAE, in Dubai, I think, thank goodness I'm home. But actually it happened by accident. It wasn't planned. Initially, when we first moved, I had a very good job. I had a home, my family, friends. Obviously, life was in the UK. But at a young age, when I was about 30, my husband fell very, very ill and didn't work for many, many years, unfortunately. So I was also a full-time carer. And he got a break actually to come to the UAE and be in Dubai with a friend of his. And so he took that decision to come, and the weather, the environment, the surroundings were really good for his health. And that's really what prompted me to come here. So I came not having a clue what I was going to do at that point. My youngest, my daughter, had just left home for university at that point. So I was free in terms of responsibilities of school-going kids and things. So I followed him here. I did a little bit of consulting as an independent consultant, writing a policy for someone at home to start with. And then I was offered an HR director role for Do when they were first set up. I was also actually offered the HR director position for American Hospital at that point. I decided to go for Do. It was all very exciting. It was a new project. It hadn't been launched. Nobody knew anything about it, but it was an amazing experience for me because it was a huge learning curve. It was the first time I'd been involved in a launch. It was the first time that I'd worked in, a new industry, so telecoms, for example. And really, I went in, sort of thrown in the deep end as their HR director with a learning curve like this, but probably one of the best decisions I made. And really, since then, the region has been very, very kind to me in terms of my professional development, things that I'm exposed to here, the opportunities I've had working from ministerial level down to blue collar level has been absolutely amazing. And I'm very, very grateful to the region because I didn't have a network here when I came. I didn't really know anybody. Over the years, that network has developed, but I have never had to go and knock on anyone's door to hire me or to give me work in my consulting experience now. And a lot of people used to say to me, oh, it's all about who you know here and can you help us? You've got such good, but actually that has not been my experience. My experience working here is that if you know what you're doing and you're good at what you're doing, there are opportunities for plenty for everyone. So actually, before I moved to the UAE, I'm the type of person that desk job isn't enough. The bigger the problem, the better. So I certainly don't want to be pushing paper behind a desk, and I like to be challenged. So when I came to the UAE, and first I held the role of the HR director through Voodoo, helping them through their launch. I then moved to Abu Dhabi airports, and they were being privatized. They were going from the Department of Civil Aviation to setting up Abu Dhabi Airports Company. And so I went in to be the principal consultant to the board to help them through that transition. It was a huge, huge challenge and exposed me to lots of things I hadn't done before. The organisation halved their size in that process, and that was back in 2007-8, when restructuring, downsizing, right-sizing really weren't new words that were used in this region. But I went in and I had to lead that transition. So also as acting as their principal consultant to the board, I also acted as their HR director and did that role for about a year. It was very successfully. We delivered the transition that we had to deliver. And kind of after being here for about 2.5 years, I realised that there was a real opportunity for the skills I have in terms of HR, bringing best practices to the region. I'd understood how HR was working in the region, if you like, and a lot of it was still kind of all thought about as payroll processing, recruitment, and nothing more than that. So I took the bold step to think, actually, I'm going to set up alone. I'm going to start up a consulting practice and never look back again. Yes, PeopleFirst has had a lot of women in the team, a lot of amazing, strong, passionate, committed women that love what they do and have really supported me and held me up and supported the brand and the legacy that we have started to build. I think HR generally tends to attract more women, but it's not by design. We have a young gentleman working with us at the moment who is joined as an intern, and I think he has huge potential. So I'm hoping that he's going to develop into a very, very strong consultant and senior consultant with us. But yes, you're absolutely right. We have had a few men come in, but it's not by design. It's really, for me, what is important is, does someone have the passion? Do they have the commitment? It's important to have the experience or be willing to learn and come with the right kind of qualifications. So it's not at all by design, but yes, we have actually, and it's funny you say that, because I remember taking on one of our first projects in Saudi Arabia, and our client actually wanted to work with women and felt less threatened as consultants, as women working with them. I suppose we didn't give them that grey suit, we're here to tell you what to do kind of impression, and we were very much sitting on the same side of the table with them and helping them and willing to roll up our sleeves with them. It was a very, very daunting time. It was very scary to set up a consulting. So I don't come from a business background. So first of all, my family are all professionals. They all work in different industries. So we're not a business family, so to speak. So I was the first one who really kind of put my toe in the water to say, I'm going to try this, yes. First of all, I had no idea where my first piece of work was going to come with. I didn't really have a very good network. But what I did was, when I left Abu Dhabi airports, I took some time out. I actually wrote a business plan, really thought about what I was going to do, had to find a sponsor to go and set up the company, find a license, the location, all of those kinds of things. And in that process, just after I achieved the license, I got offered a piece of work in Abu Dhabi, actually for Abu Dhabi Aircraft Technologies. That was Gamco transitioning to Abu Dhabi Aircraft Technologies. And they do all of the engineering for Etihad Airways. It was a huge transformation they were going through. So they asked me to go in and lead the people side of that transformation. So I was sat across the table to say, but I'm not an individual anymore. PeopleFirst is who you're going to have to contract with here. And by the end of that project, we've taken on 6 people to deliver that project. So it was a huge and amazing project for us. And I have to say, people have trusted us over the years to give us such types of work. But what's important is that we've not let them down, and that we've managed to build a very secure, strong reputation for delivering what we promise. Wow, that's a loaded question. I'm very, very grateful. Alhamdulillah. There's a few actually I'd like to mention, because I think it is important to recognize each of this. So my company being recognized in the category of Best HR Consultancy by the Chartered Institute of People Development in the UK. We were the only company to have been shortlisted for a UK award a few years ago. So to put ourselves on the map from an HR industry perspective, and that was for a project that we did in Oman. The Oman government put in $6.1 billion to build 6 new airports, and we won the project to restructure them. So that was one. I've just have completed a full-time tenure, and also am continuing on a project basis as a senior advisor to one of the cabinet ministers here in the federal government. Very, very thrilled to have been doing that. I'm working very closely with Her Excellency Oud Al-Rumi, who is the Minister for Government Development and the Future. And the UAE, as you know, is very, very visionary, and she's been looking at the next 50 years of what government is going to look like. And I've had the pleasure of working with her and her team to really rewrite some of the civil services laws, redevelop some of the frameworks for the federal government. I'm also finalist in Emirates Women of the Year some years ago for setting up a consultancy in the middle of a recession. And then also, I think the work that I've done with people that have worked with me, I'm very, very passionate about coaching people, acting as a mentor, supporting people and helping them. I've had many, many people join me that don't come from necessarily, huge amounts of HR experience and background. But because we take our work very, very seriously, there's a lot of focus on coaching people, a lot of focus on developing individuals, helping them grow, empowering them. And I've got a lot of kind of individuals that have gone on to take on, Sabahat, as an example, is just one of them actually, who is now, a senior manager senior director actually with KPMG, and she joined me with only training background. So she hadn't had any HR experience, but she had passion, she had commitment, she was willing to learn, roll up her sleeves, for example, and that's just one example. And spent 7 or 8 years with me, almost 7 or 8 years, starting from scratch, being exposed to all aspects of HR. And that's the beauty of what we do, because we're not industry specific. We work with absolutely any industry in government, semi-government, or the private sector. And we go in and, we're able to really gain a lot of knowledge and understanding of different industries. Actually, no, I had an arranged marriage at the age of 19. You're getting married, and that was it. And you daren't say anything about that. But actually, I after I did my A-levels, I wanted to go to medical school. I was going to be the top surgeon in the world. That's the only thing I ever actually wanted to do. I was either going to be a brain surgeon or a heart surgeon, but, life chooses where it wants to take you. And I think you have to respond to that. So, yes, I had an arranged marriage. Tariq and I married when I was 19. He was 5 years older to me. And life took a different course. I had my son, as I mentioned, when I was 20, and my daughter when I was 23. So I'm blessed with 2 amazing children who have done very, very well. I had to work throughout my life. I was not a housewife. Initially, financially, we bought a home, all of those kinds of things, had to pay a mortgage. So I've always worked. And then unfortunately, when I turned 30, Tariq had a very severe accident and wasn't able to work. So I had to assume responsibility for the whole family from a financial perspective as well. And that was very, very challenging, because not only from working, bringing in the money, looking after the kids, making sure all of that was happening, but also acting as a full-time carer for my husband who, his life changed as a result of that, and then and in the UK it was a battle because unfortunately his accident was due to negligence from the hospital. So I was battling with the NHS, which I did successfully. I was battling with local councils and authorities to help us accommodate his needs in the house, which were ignored, etc. So life for many, many years, if I'm honest, felt like every single muscle in my body was stretched. It just felt like there was not enough time in the day or the week or the month. And I actually went through a lot of counselling because when I was younger, I trained to be a counsellor. I trained to be a youth counsellor. I used to do a lot of work with the Pakistan Welfare Association, where I used to live in the UK. And I learned to be a counsellor just to really help the youth. And at that point, when all of this happened, and suddenly they told me my husband was going to die. They didn't think he was going to make it through the accident, unfortunately. My house was like a building site. We were having a lot of work done. There was work, there was kids, etc. And I realized, oh my God, how am I supposed to deal with all of this? And what I did do, and I'm so grateful for it, was I reached out to the place that I'd learned to be a counsellor to say, can I come and speak to someone, please? And then I used to go back every week and just take each week at a time. But the most important thing was that I was honest to myself, and I started to become in touch with my feelings and what emotions I was going through and how I had to deal with them on a day-to-day, kind of week-to-week basis. That really helped me through. So I talk about this as something that I haven't actually talked about openly before. My close friends know about it, etc. But it has really, at different stages of my life, I have, recognized when things do get tough that perhaps it's a good idea to sit down and unpack all of that in a professional environment. And it has helped me to build strategies on how I'm going to deal with things and move forward. Yeah. And honestly, I would bottle it and sell it if I could, because it really has helped me through a lot. And I think it's recognizing the signs and being able to kind of open up and just be. I remember the first time, actually, the first session I had, she asked me and said, how do you, and I told her my husband, they told me he might die, this is happening, this is happening, this is happening. And she said, how do you feel? And I was like, oh, what do I say now? And I just said all the things I think I should have said. And I went away that week and thought about it and thought, oh, why couldn't I answer her question? And I really gave it some thought. And I went back the next week and said, you asked me this question, and I have to be honest, I told you everything I think I should have said. They said, that's because you don't know how you feel. You don't stop to think how you feel. And I realized it has actually, and it's played a different role in different stages, I think. If I look back at in the UK, being of an ethnic background, being someone who is assertive, who is driven, who is self-motivated, etc., I don't think that always sat well with people, because I actually had somebody say to me, when I was in working at Heathrow in uniform and I applied to be from a check-in agent to becoming the duty manager, I was the only one that got the job. And I remember my manager who offered the job to me saying, oh, we wish we'd videoed your interview because it was the perfect interview. So the feedback was really good. But one of my colleagues who didn't get the job, she said, but you're Asian and you have children, and we thought you'd be on a check-in desk for the rest of your life. Those are the actual words that she said to me. So, and I am very direct in my communication. I'm not afraid to kind of listen and be heard, etc. And I would always be told, maybe you want to be a little bit less direct. And initially I think, you just didn't like what I said. And then I realized that, no, perhaps you need to listen and change the way you're saying things, because I thought it was maybe, they're not used to perhaps an Asian woman. And I was the only Asian woman at that point who moved into management levels in British Airways in the division that I was working at that time as well. So I found that a little bit of a battle, actually. I always found I had to kind of really work harder, really prove myself more, and really kind of fight my corner. And then, so that initially, I think, was certainly the case. Coming to the region, here in the UAE, the GCC, we work extensively across the region, so not just in the UAE. It has not actually held me back in any way, shape or form. I think the people that I've worked with, people I've come across, have looked past that. And if I've been able to promote and share my expertise, my skills with people, and that's what they see. So I've never let that become a barrier for me. I do remember back in the UK, people that I was working with in check-in who said, oh, we'll never get that job. We'll never get that job because we're Asian. And they say, well, I wouldn't give you that job with that attitude. You've got to look past that yourself before you expect others to look past that. So I think believing in yourself. Since I've been here, and then of course I had an amazing experience to actually go to Pakistan for a year. I went to be the Chief HR Officer of PIA, so a public organisation that was really wanting to go through, and I'm really glad to hear that things are changing. But I went back in 2018 as part of a new leadership team to lead a transformation for them. And actually, I was very, very excited about that because, one, aviation is my background. I have a lot of aviation experience back in the UK and here in the region. And of course, being Pakistani, being very patriotic, wanting to make a difference. Yes, I can fix the world when we go back, and help fix Pakistan, all those things that need to be fixed in PIA. But actually, I was not accepted very easily because they still see you as an outsider. I speak the language, I share the culture, all of those kinds of things. But yes, work practices, work experience, work ethic was different. Working culture was very different, and I learned a lot of lessons about the Pakistani culture while I was there, being exposed, thrown into the deep end. And I'm very, very grateful for that opportunity because it's helped me understand the Pakistani culture much better. It's helped me understand what I could have done differently there to perhaps be more accepted when I was there. A simple thing, I've always dressed in suits and things when I go to work. And just a simple thing, and I wore my suits when I was there, but actually if I'd worn a shalwar kameez, perhaps that would have even been a simpler, more easier way to be accepted. But so reflection for me was also very, very important. So being a Pakistani, I think what was important, especially when I went to Pakistan, was to stay focused on why I was there and not become part of that culture, because that was nothing wrong with the culture. The working environment is what we were trying to put best practices in place. So there's not a criticism of the Pakistani culture, but the working practices on how we were doing things from an HR perspective. And that was a real challenge, but that's part of managing change. It is really important, I think, to have aspiration, to have a vision, to know and believe in yourself. I think that is the most important thing. Doesn't matter what's happening around you. Even today, when we bid for pieces of work with some of the big players, we recently won something over McKinsey. We compete against the big four all of the time, etc. I don't actually pay too much attention who else is bidding for this. I focus on what are we bringing to the table. And I think that has been my ethos all along. What am I bringing to the table? Do I believe in myself? Can I do this? And how can I do this? So I never really see things as impossible or not possible. I think the way I like to look at things is, okay, everything is possible. You just got to find a way. How? What is the best way to do this? So I think having that kind of positive mindset and not giving up, because we're all going to fail. We're all going to learn lessons, because if you don't, then you don't grow. So part of this journey, if I look back now to 18 years ago when I set up PeopleFirst and the first proposal I wrote versus what we send out now, wow, that's a learning in itself. But we evolve. I'm now teaching myself about AI and helping my team use AI when we're doing research, etc., and those kinds of things. So we must evolve. I think it's important. I know nothing about cryptocurrency, and I realize that's probably something I need to get into and make some investments, etc. But I want to learn about it. So I think continual learning, continuous improvement, and willing to listen and go, oh. And I think the other advice I would give to young people is surround yourself with people that are going to motivate you and not say, oh no, it doesn't matter, we can do it later, etc. Be inspired by people around you. Listen to people. Don't always say, I've done this. It's really important to listen because we learn so much. And then you'll go away and reflect on that. So, yes, reach for the sky. Absolutely. There is no limit. Believe that you can do it. And then put in place the steps at your own pace. At different paces in my life. When I had children, they were young, they were schooling, etc. The pace at which my career grew was very different. I studied or went back to study. I didn't go to university, I told you. My company then sponsored me in my 30s to go back to university, do a degree. They gave me 1 day off a week to go to university to do it. I sponsored myself and then did my master's, my MBA. I fast-tracked to the MBA. And then at the age of just over 40, I did my fellowship. So it was really important for me to present myself as an HR professional, that I had the credentials behind it. I remember back in the UK, very early on, a very good manager said to me, Asma, you're very good in terms of your performance, etc. But on paper, you don't have a degree. So if I don't know you and I don't know how you perform, how am I going to know what Asma is about? So that I thought, okay, I need to go and get a degree. I need to go and have the qualifications. And that's exactly what I did. I don't think there's an ideal path as such, because, different experiences, different times, different opportunities. But I think what is important is, if I may, through my, 40 odd years of experience now, people don't always understand what HR is about. And when I tell them what we do, HR is not your payroll administration or recruitment, and you go to them when you need a letter, because that's what it's seen as a lot. We restructure, transform companies right from designing their operating level. So yes, it has everything to do with people, but it's around how organizations operate, how many people they need, what skills they need, what jobs they need, how they should be structured, how much you should pay people, how do you performance manage people, how do you develop people, how do you motivate them, how do you make sure they're happy, how are you going to make sure they come to work, how are you going to discipline them and ensure in all of that legal and regulatory compliance, depending on your industry. So HR has a really important role to play in business. We're never going to be wiped out by machines and those kinds of things. We will evolve. The HR industry, the HR fraternity will evolve in terms of how it adds value, but HR definitely has a very key and important role to play around the leadership team at the table. And I think what I would encourage is, for young people who are thinking about HR, come and have a little session with me, come and intern with us. I've worked very closely with American University here, offering intern programs for people to come and join us. We've even done some work as part of their courses as well, delivering modules to them. So if anybody would like to reach out to get a better understanding of what HR really entails, and quite often, rather than me telling you, I will put you in touch with one of my team who's come through that route. Ashwin, for example, the intern that I mentioned who joined us and is now one of our consultant pool, he'd be a great person to talk to because he was from an IT background, didn't really want to come into HR. He joined us as an intern. We took him on to give him 3 months experience, and he then was made permanent, and his first project was to go to Pakistan and landed in Karachi to work with one of our major players who's going multinational. No, I'm not worried at all that it's going to take away. I think what we have to be conscious of is technology is evolving every single. If we look at just, when an ATM machine came in, I don't even go into a bank anymore. And then back in the UK, I was the project manager when Terminal 5 was established. And when Terminal 5 came, self-service check-in, all of these kind of things, booking your tickets online, that never used to happen. You used to book through an agent, all those kinds of things. So technology came in and roles and responsibilities started to change. So I remember being part of that project manager at Terminal 5, where we were redesigning the job role from sitting behind a check-in desk to becoming a host, for example. And that required different skills, different competencies. The job description changed, if you like. So as we move on, I believe how has AI helped us? For sure, in terms of the desk research, where we used to spend hours and hours, for example, that is certainly enhancing where we spend and add value in terms of the time that we spend on different things. Learning to understand how AI can perhaps speed up things, help us manage large sets of data, for example, and those kinds. So I think what's important to understand is how it's going to change the way that we do things and yes, it may do away. Part of our role is trying to look at roles that will become redundant, if you like, sunset roles versus those that will emerge in the future in organizations. So we've done a big study recently where we're looking at which industries and which roles will disappear versus which roles will appear in the future. So it's really about staying on top of that and understanding what the impact is going to be, rather going, oh my God, I'm not going to have a job to do. HR has a very critical role to play in any organisation, and it can be a bit of a pendulum swing. The role of HR is to make sure that organisations operate, first of all, from a compliance perspective, that they're not at risk and that they abide by the laws and regulations of the land in which they're operating. Two, that they know how to get the best out of their people, that they motivate them, that they reward them, and that they can grow and develop them. And that people don't want to just leave and, it's like a revolving door. So creating an organization where you can attract the right people, you can retain the right people, you can pay them according to market rates, you can grow and develop them, motivate them, empower them. So yes, sometimes you have to look at it certainly from a business perspective, and sometimes you have to look at it from an employee's perspective, and that's why there's a bit of a pendulum swing. But you don't take sides in this. You are working for an organisation, and people are part of that organisation. You're not doing it to them, because you have to think when you're developing policies, for example, you've got to think about the culture that you want to create in an organisation and what kind of policies are going to encourage and really sort of embed that culture for you, for example. So it's not about sides at all. It's about making sure that you're the glue, I think, between all of that. I think women establishing themselves in leadership positions per se doesn't have to be HR, but certainly, in HR, I don't necessarily say, oh, I'm a woman. That doesn't come into play for me. I think you've got to be as good as the person that might be interviewing with you, for example. Yes, men and women are different. Women will go away, have children, come back, etc. You've got to recognize all of those things in the way that we're built and how, our lives are. But in terms of organization from an HR perspective, I think putting in place policies and things that enable those and recognize that where men and women make a different contribution to society and families, per se, but when it comes back to the workplace, that doesn't compromise who we are. So from a female perspective, do not underestimate what you have to give. I would encourage you not to sit back and go, okay, and be willing to take that step, but also I think from when you're sitting around the table, whether it's a woman or a man speaking, it makes no difference. What's important is what you're saying, what you bring to the table, and the value that you add. Yeah, very much so. I think it's changing, and especially yesterday I went to dinner with some friends. And I was speaking to a lady from Pakistan who's just spent a few years in Malaysia. She's in the food manufacturing industry, has done very, very well. She's going now into Saudi Arabia as a chief marketing officer for a large company. And it was really inspiring. And I was very, very pleased to see Pakistani women actually from Pakistan being posted abroad to these positions. So that's very, very, I take a lot of pride watching that happen. So I think, you are, and I think the beautiful thing is that every Pakistani has, if not one, two phones. So in terms of getting access to what is out there is available to everyone, even the youngest person. Doesn't matter which part of Pakistan you're living in. Social media, the internet has given us access. So, there are no limits really. So I wouldn't say that going abroad is a bad thing. It's a very good thing because you can learn a lot, etc. And I think having Pakistanis in other countries, serving other countries, doing well, is a very, very proud moment for Pakistan. Actually, I'm very proud to say that we have, I've been doing some work with the the Punjab Wealth Education Foundation for many years now. They reached out to me many years ago, and they had about 20 girls who had really achieved the highest marks. And they come from very rural areas, and what they wanted actually was just for us to recognise them, see how we could motivate them to further study, encourage their parents to let them. So actually we created certificates of recognition. I actually flew to Pakistan, spoke to them, awarded them, and then the next time I had a Western secretary. She actually flew out on behalf of Pakistan, on behalf of PeopleFirst to go and recognise, etc. And then, what we've done is collected money to send school bags, and as an organisation, we've engaged in charitable activities to raise money so that we can help them, get tools for their education, like school bags, pens, pencils, booklets, all of these kind of things, and we send the money so that they can help people in rural areas. So that's really, really important, because education changed my life. And I say this to a lot of people, and I would certainly like to say it to all of my Pakistani younger children, brothers and sisters, etc., that education is key. So, and I know that people are making loads of money very quickly on social media and influencing and all of it, which is amazing, great. Please continue to do that. I'm not criticising that at all. But also in terms of, an education doesn't necessarily have to be in that formal context. There are so many ways to learn, so many ways to improve your skills, improve your competencies, etc. So that should never end, really. But yes, in terms of what I would like to offer is certainly an opportunity, if anybody would like to, is thinking about HR or thinking about consulting, for example, or wants to know about little industries. Now that we work across industries, I would be happy to allow, host them, come and speak to us. If I'm always open to interns and those kinds of things. So happy for people to reach out to me. And one thing I would like to do is really go back to Pakistan and support human development in Pakistan. So that's an area that I'm particularly interested in, that I think I certainly can contribute, and that's one of my aspirations. So I will be looking for an opportunity in the future, inshallah, where I can make a positive impact to help human capital development in Pakistan. So women that take career breaks for, and getting back into the workplace, that can be a very daunting, challenging thing. Pace of change is so quick. But I think what's important, and I will reflect on my own experience here, although I've never taken a long break, but when I decided to move to the UAE, I applied for the odd job while I was there and never even got a response. But I stood back and said, okay, what do I have? So I recognized the skill set that I had. I recognised the experience I had. I recognised that they were transferable skills, for example. So I did some self-reflection and really looked at what am I taking and how can I offer this, in the UAE. And so what I would say is those who have taken a break, one, use time effectively where you can to stay on top and understand how things have changed. Recognise, a lot of people, I think, when they take career breaks, don't also want to go back to what they were doing before. Sometimes when you've got that experience and you were a banker, for example, you can step straight into banking. But having that career break sometimes really gives people the opportunity to go, oh, did I really like that? And what do I want to do now, etc. So I think using your time depending on what you want to do, whether you're going back to the same industry or same type of work, whether you're looking for something new, is to really kind of try and keep yourself up to speed with what's happening. Talk to people. You know, I have a lot of people that talk to me to say, I'm thinking of this, I want to go back, how can you, you know, I met with a very young, actually, HR professional. So a friend of mine had referred me to a young lady who's moved over from Pakistan. She must be in her very early 20s. She's working for an HR, she's working as an HR manager in a company. It's a Pakistani company actually, but established here. And she doesn't know really, she's already got the title of HR, although it's a manager, although this is her first job. But she's struggling to influence people that have more experience sitting around that managerial table, for example. So I was kind of listening to her. I'm very proud of her actually, because she's made that leap, but also thinking actually what you're learning here is not the technical aspects of the job, it's around how to influence people, how to lobby people and make sure that you test your ideas with those that might listen first to gain support and get buy-in, etc. So without sort of distracting too much, going back to the career break, it can be very daunting, but I think it's important to start speaking to people, looking at what you want to do, being clear about where you want to go back, and those kinds of things, and really kind of pursuing that. And yes, of course, some doors close, some doors open, but I think if the idea is to go back, you know, really knowing how to sell and package yourself with the experience that you have. So what if you've had a break? That's perfectly okay. But being able to demonstrate that you're able to get back, hit the floor running and get up to speed, that's what I would be looking for if I'm an employer. I would be quite happy to run a kind of pro bono, you know, people that are in that space want to come, talk session, you know, some, just even if it's kind of CV writing, updating, or knowing what are the changes that happen, what to look for in interview skills, or how should I go about this, I would be happy to facilitate. The only thing I think I would like to reflect, possibly, I don't know if it's relevant or not, it's probably about me also, in terms of the last 18 years has been an absolute slog, right? Hard work in terms of personal life and professional life in establishing yourself, etc. But I think what is really important also is, what I'm recognizing now also is that how important it is to kind of live a little and, you know, kind of make sure that you do spend time doing things you enjoy and things that aren't necessarily work, perhaps, and spending time with people and relationships, and kind of, you know, travel for me is one of the things. As I set myself when I turn 60, I want to travel, and I take every opportunity to travel that I can, and I balance that, because the way that we work now, you know, you can work remotely. I don't have to I hardly ever go into my office anymore. You know, I'm on client site, or I work a lot from home, and those kinds of things. So I think it is important to make sure that you also look at the things that you want to do on a personal level, and make sure that you take pleasure, because life can run you by so quickly and you realize you haven't done this, this and this. So I'm certainly in catch-up mode on that. And doing stuff like this, I think, is really important. You know, and especially, you know, we are competing up against the biggest names, you know, and to kind of get a look in even, I can never let something go out without really checking it, the quality assurance that we have to, so we can't compromise that, but we've built models now and built a team that we can work to get together. So yeah, really important. That was for National Foods. It was Pakistani project actually. So National Foods were going multinational, so they were growing. You know, outside of Pakistan, their business outside was getting bigger than and they were restructuring. So we were, invited by them and partnered with them, and McKinsey were the other partner that had bid for that piece of work. But we were able to demonstrate our expertise, and we were given an opportunity, and we very, very successfully restructured the company, done a lot of work on performance management, and July, August time we will be rolling out their performance management framework through training.